For decades, spinach has been placed on the pedestal of superfoods. It became synonymous with strength, health, and youth, almost as if it were a protective shield against all diseases. Many of us grew up believing that the more spinach, the better. But does this fame match reality? Could eating spinach without thinking be a silent mistake that threatens your health, especially after the age of 60? The answer might surprise you. Imagine someone who religiously follows a diet full of green salads every day, believing they are shielding their body against the problems of aging. This person feels proud of maintaining healthy habits, but, without realizing it, they could be accumulating substances that overload their kidneys, weaken their bones, and even interfere with the effects of their medications. Scary, isn't it? What should be an act of care can turn into a hidden trap on the plate. And that is precisely the danger of spinach. It's not in the food itself, but in the way we use it. Modern science reveals that, although packed with valuable nutrients, spinach also carries compounds capable of hindering the absorption of fundamental minerals, such as calcium and iron. Furthermore, there are specific risks for those who already deal with certain conditions common after the age of 60, like osteoporosis, high blood pressure, or a history of kidney stones. The irony is that, in the rush to seek vitality, many end up putting their own health at risk. This is where the question that few ask arises: could such a famous vegetable be silently sabotaging our quality of life? And more, why does almost no one speak clearly about this? Perhaps because the image of spinach as a nutritional hero has been repeated so many times that it has become untouchable. But science is not afraid to revisit myths. The good news is that information is power. When we understand the most common mistakes in spinach consumption, we can adjust simple daily choices to turn a potential enemy into an ally. Small changes in preparation and frequency make all the difference. And that's what you're about to discover: the 8 biggest mistakes involving spinach that every senior needs to know, and how to avoid them to maintain energy, strong bones, and active longevity. If this warning has already struck a chord with you and brought a new perspective on such a popular food, hit that like button now. That way, more people can access this vital information before it's too late. Have you ever heard the phrase, "eat spinach because it's full of iron"? This advice has crossed generations. The image of the sailor Popeye opening a can of spinach to get instant muscles helped solidify this idea. But the truth is that this myth was born from a scientific error, and to this day, many people continue to believe it without knowing the real story. At the end of the 19th century, researchers analyzed the amount of iron in spinach and published their results. But one detail changed everything. Due to an oversight, the decimal point was placed in the wrong spot. The value found appeared to be 10 times higher than it actually was. The scientific world, and later the general public, embraced the discovery as if it were an absolute truth. The result? Spinach became a symbol of strength and energy. But the iron present in it is not as available to the body as it seems. Even after being corrected, this error never lost its cultural force. The central issue is that the iron in spinach is bound to compounds called oxalates, which hinder absorption. In other words, the body doesn't utilize most of the iron from this vegetable. For those who already suffer from anemia or low hemoglobin levels, relying solely on spinach can be a dangerous trap. It's like putting the wrong fuel in a car. You think you're filling up, but in practice, the engine doesn't receive the energy it needs. This doesn't mean spinach is useless, but it shows how a lack of context can distort the truth. Nutrition is not just about the raw quantity of nutrients, but about the body's ability to absorb and use each one. And in the case of spinach iron, the utilization is much lower than once thought. There are far more efficient sources, such as legumes, lean meats, or seeds rich in bioavailable iron. Now, if the iron myth has already opened your eyes to the importance of questioning old beliefs, get ready. Because the next mistake doesn't involve the quantity of nutrients, but the presence of something that can literally crystallize inside your body and cause intense pain, surgeries, and serious risks to your kidneys. If the iron myth has already shown how the fame of spinach can be misleading, now we get to the real critical point: oxalates. Few people have heard of them, but these microscopic crystals are present in large quantities in spinach and can accumulate silently in the body. The problem? They have a huge affinity for minerals like calcium, forming solid deposits that turn into kidney stones or disrupt essential functions. Imagine a senior who drinks little water and consumes raw spinach and green juices every day, believing they are strengthening their health. What happens inside the body is the opposite of what's expected. The oxalates bind to calcium, form hard crystals, and little by little, begin to generate microlithiases, small grains that evolve into kidney stones. Anyone who has experienced the pain of a kidney stone knows, it's one of the most intense pains a human can endure, and in many cases, it leads to hospitalizations and surgeries. But the risk doesn't stop at the kidneys. An excess of oxalates can also affect the joints, causing discomfort, stiffness, and even worsening arthritis in older people. Furthermore, they reduce the absorption of minerals fundamental for vitality after 60, such as magnesium and calcium. The result? More fragile bones, less resistant muscles, and a body that, instead of gaining strength from spinach, may end up losing it. Scientifically, it is known that a diet rich in oxalates, when combined with low fluid intake and a genetic predisposition, greatly increases the chance of developing kidney stones. And that's precisely where the danger lies. Often, the symptoms appear when the problem is already too big to be ignored. It's not uncommon for someone to discover during a routine exam that they have silent stones growing in their kidneys for years. Of course, we don't need to demonize spinach, but we can't ignore the science either. The secret is to know the food in depth and use it intelligently, without falling into the more, the better trap. Dietary diversity, proper preparation, and balance are the keys to turning spinach from a threat into an ally. And this raises an essential question: if oxalates are already capable of harming mineral absorption so much, what is the real impact of this on our bones, which are already naturally more fragile with aging? As we age, one of the biggest challenges is to preserve the strength and density of our bones. Osteopenia and osteoporosis become concrete threats, especially for those who have passed the age of 60. It is in this scenario that the careless consumption of spinach can become a silent obstacle. This is because the oxalates present in this vegetable bind to calcium in an almost invisible way, drastically reducing the amount the body can absorb. The result? Bones that should be nourished become increasingly fragile. Think of a woman who always believed she was taking care of her health by preparing huge salads with raw spinach, thinking she was strengthening her bones. In reality, instead of absorbing enough calcium, her body was discarding a large part of this essential mineral. And without enough available calcium, the bone architecture gradually gives way. It's like a wall built with fragile clay bricks. On the outside, it looks solid, but on the inside, it's vulnerable to any impact. Calcium is not only important for bone strength. It participates in muscle contraction, blood clotting, and even the transmission of nerve impulses. When bioavailable calcium is lacking, the body is forced to withdraw it from the bones themselves to maintain vital functions. This emergency withdrawal accelerates bone weakening and increases the risk of fractures, which in older people can be devastating, compromising mobility and autonomy. And the worst part is that many seniors believe they are doing everything right. They drink milk, eat spinach, and try to maintain a healthy diet, without knowing that this excess oxalate acts as a barrier, blocking the utilization of calcium. It's a trap that goes unnoticed until a bone density test reveals the loss of mass or, in even more serious cases, until the first fracture occurs. The good news is that science also shows ways to neutralize some of these effects. Proper preparation of spinach, balanced consumption, and intelligent combination with other calcium-rich foods with high absorption can make a difference. But before we talk about solutions, we need to look at another equally critical point. It's not just calcium that suffers from excessive spinach consumption. There is still a silent factor that can turn this vegetable into a serious risk for those who use certain medications. When we think about food risks, we rarely remember interactions with medications. But for those over 60, this is a reality that cannot be ignored. Spinach, being extremely rich in vitamin K, can significantly interfere with the action of common drugs, especially anticoagulants. And this detail, often overlooked, can have serious consequences. Medications like warfarin, used to prevent thrombosis, strokes, and heart problems, depend on a delicate balance between blood clotting and fluidity. An excess of vitamin K alters this balance, reducing the effectiveness of the drug. It's as if someone is constantly adjusting the handbrake of a car while you're trying to drive. At some point, the machine doesn't respond as it should. The risk of clot formation increases, and what was meant to protect the heart can turn into a silent trap.
But it's not just anticoagulants that require attention.
Spinach can also affect the absorption and effect of calcium, magnesium, and iron supplements, precisely because its oxalates bind to these minerals. For those who already have nutritional deficiencies or are taking supplements prescribed by a doctor, including large amounts of raw spinach can nullify part of the expected effect. In other words, you take the medicine or supplement believing you are taking care of your health, but your body can't take full advantage of it. Imagine a common scenario: a senior with a history of hypertension, osteoporosis, and cardiovascular risk. This patient takes 3 or 4 different medications daily, in addition to supplements indicated by the doctor. If the basis of their diet is raw spinach and juices and salads, they could be jeopardizing the effect of the entire therapy, without even imagining it.
The consequence can range from a gradual worsening of symptoms to acute crises that require hospitalization.
Therefore, it is essential to understand that spinach does not mix well with all health contexts. More than just being good for you, a food can be beneficial or harmful depending on the state of the body and the medications being used.
This is one of the reasons why personalized nutrition is so important after the age of 60. What helps one person can harm another.
And even when there is no use of medication, the way spinach is prepared can completely change the impact it will have on the body.
Raw or cooked? What is the best way? The answer may be more surprising than you imagine. The way spinach is prepared can completely transform the effect it has on the body. This detail, often ignored, explains why some people consume the vegetable daily without noticing any problems, while others face kidney pain, fragile bones, or mineral deficiencies. The central point is the difference between eating it raw and cooked. Raw spinach, so common in salads or green juices, maintains its maximum load of oxalates. This means that every bite carries the potential to block the absorption of calcium and magnesium and to contribute to the formation of crystals that overload the kidneys. The fresh taste and convenience hide this less talked about but very relevant side, especially for those over 60 who already face natural challenges with nutrient absorption. On the other hand, when spinach is cooked or sautéed, part of the oxalates dissolves in the water. This process reduces the amount of substances that hinder mineral absorption, making the vegetable less aggressive. However, high temperatures can also diminish some sensitive nutrients, such as vitamin C and part of the folate. In contrast, certain antioxidants, like lutein and beta-carotene, become more bioavailable after cooking. In other words, there is no perfect way, there are gains and losses in each method. Science shows that one of the best strategies is to vary the preparation. Alternating between small portions of raw and cooked portions, always preferring to cook in abundant water and discarding the liquid, can balance risks and benefits. Another tip is to pair spinach with ingredients that neutralize some of the oxalates, like lemon, rich in vitamin C, and olive oil, which helps with the absorption of antioxidants. These simple combinations enhance the strengths of spinach and reduce its unwanted effects. For many seniors, this change in preparation is the key to continuing to enjoy the vegetable without compromising their health. The problem arises when spinach, whether raw or cooked, is consumed in excess and repetitively, without diversity on the plate. After all, even a healthy food can become harmful when it takes up too much space in the diet. And that is exactly the next mistake we need to explore: the trap of putting spinach on the table every day, as if it were irreplaceable. There is a widespread belief that if a food is healthy, then the more, the better. In the case of spinach, this leads many people to put it on their plate every day, believing they are shielding their body against diseases. However, this seemingly harmless habit can turn into a dangerous routine, especially after the age of 60. The human body was not made to live on dietary monotony. When we repeat the same food daily, we increase our exposure to its negative compounds and fail to provide the body with the variety of nutrients it needs. In the case of spinach, this means overloading the kidneys with oxalates, reducing the absorption of calcium and magnesium, and also increasing the risks of interactions with medications. It's like insisting on using the same tool for every problem. At some point, it becomes insufficient and even harmful. Another point is that daily repetition creates an accumulation effect. What seems harmless in an isolated meal becomes concerning when repeated for weeks or months. The body begins to constantly deal with the load of excess oxalates and vitamin K, without time for balance. This is where silent complications arise:
kidney stones, accelerated bone loss, or fluctuations in blood clotting in those who use anticoagulants.
Dietary diversity is one of the greatest secrets to healthy longevity. Studies show that seniors with varied diets have less inflammation, a better gut microbiota, and more resilience against chronic diseases. Including kale, arugula, chard, broccoli, and other leafy greens in the weekly rotation not only prevents the risks of excess spinach but also multiplies the supply of protective nutrients. It's worth remembering, you don't have to abolish spinach, but you must understand that it should not have an exclusive place on your plate. Balance comes from smart rotation, which allows the body to enjoy the best of each food without falling into the traps of excess. And here's an important reflection. Have you ever stopped to notice if you put spinach on your plate almost every day? Have you noticed any discomfort or change in your body that could be linked to this habit? Share your experience in the comments, because sharing real stories helps other people see risks they might not have noticed yet. But the question remains, does everyone need to worry this much? Or are there specific groups for whom spinach can be even more dangerous? Although everyone should be aware of the risks of excessive spinach consumption, some groups of people need to be extra careful. Seniors with a history of kidney stones are at the top of this list. The oxalates in spinach can bind to calcium and form crystals that grow silently, causing intense pain, urinary infections, and, in severe cases, surgery. Another vulnerable group are those with osteoporosis or low bone density. Since oxalates block calcium absorption, excess spinach can worsen bone fragility, increasing the risk of fractures. It's a silent effect that goes unnoticed until an accident happens. People who use anticoagulants also need to be careful. The vitamin K present in spinach directly interferes with the effectiveness of these medications, potentially reducing protection against thrombosis or strokes. And even those who take essential mineral supplements should monitor their intake of the vegetable, because oxalates can decrease the absorption of calcium, magnesium, and iron. It's worth remembering that not everyone reacts in the same way. Genetic predisposition, daily hydration, and dietary diversity make a difference. For some, small portions of spinach several times a week are perfectly safe. For others, even a daily salad already requires caution. The key is to know your own body and adapt your diet according to individual needs. Even so, spinach does not need to be completely eliminated from the diet. What makes the difference is the frequency, preparation, and combination with other foods. For example, cooking the vegetable or alternating it with other leaves helps reduce the impact of oxalates. Small changes can turn spinach from a potential enemy into a health ally. And for those who want to enjoy its benefits without risks, there are even safer and more nutritious alternatives. Leaves like kale, chard, arugula, and broccoli deliver similar nutrients without overloading the body. Despite all the warnings, spinach remains a rich and functional food, as long as it is consumed in balance. It is a source of fiber, which aids digestion and helps maintain a feeling of satiety, antioxidants like lutein and zeaxanthin, which protect vision, and important vitamins, such as A, C, and some B-complex vitamins, essential for energy and immunity. In addition, it contains magnesium and iron, even if absorption is not total, contributing partially to muscle and blood health. The secret is not to put all the focus on a single vegetable. When spinach is part of a varied diet, it adds value without creating risks. It is important to remember that the bioavailability of nutrients varies with preparation. Cooking reduces oxalates but maintains important antioxidants. Eating it raw ensures more vitamin C but increases the risks of oxalate accumulation. Knowing how to balance these choices is fundamental to maximizing benefits. And we cannot forget that health is the result of continuous habits, not a single miracle food. A colorful plate, with different types of leaves, vegetables, fruits, and lean proteins, ensures a complete supply of essential nutrients and reduces the negative effects of each isolated food. This strategy of diversity is proven to be associated with better digestion, more energy, less inflammation, and greater longevity in people over 60. If you already consume spinach with awareness and alternation, congratulations. But for many seniors, spinach still takes up too much space on the plate, without considering alternatives that deliver similar benefits with less risk. If you want to continue enjoying the benefits of leafy greens without the risks of excess spinach, there are alternatives that are equally nutritious and, in some cases, even safer.
Leaves like kale, arugula, chard, and broccoli offer fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, but with a lower concentration of oxalates, which reduces the risks of kidney stones and interference with calcium and iron absorption. In addition to varying the types of leaves, the preparation method and combinations can enhance nutrients and minimize unwanted effects. For example, dressing with olive oil improves the absorption of carotenoids, adding lemon or vinegar can increase the bioavailability of iron, and alternating raw and cooked leaves balances the benefits without overloading the body.
Small changes like these turn simple meals into true allies for longevity. Another important point is frequency.
Instead of consuming spinach every day, alternate it with other greens throughout the week. This rotation ensures a diversity of nutrients, helps prevent an overload of compounds like oxalates, and keeps the diet interesting and pleasurable. A colorful and varied diet is one of the most efficient strategies for health after 60. And there is still a little-known trick that makes spinach safe. Cooking it quickly in abundant water and discarding the liquid significantly reduces the concentration of oxalates, while keeping essential vitamins. This technique allows the food to be consumed without compromising bones, kidneys, or mineral absorption. If you know someone who puts spinach on their plate every day, it's worth sharing this information now. Small changes in habits can prevent serious problems and ensure that this vegetable continues to be a health ally, and not a silent threat. We have reached the most important point: spinach is not an enemy, but it is not an absolute hero either. Everything depends on how it is consumed, the frequency, and the combination with other foods. For those who have passed the age of 60, attention to detail makes all the difference in maintaining health, protecting bones, kidneys, and the heart, and preserving daily energy. The great lesson is simple but powerful: balance and diversity are more important than any single superfood. Introducing variety to your plate, alternating leaves, cooking intelligently, and paying attention to your own health conditions transforms every meal into a boost for longevity. With small adjustments, it is possible to continue enjoying spinach without risks, and still reap all the benefits it offers, such as antioxidants, fiber, and essential vitamins. More than learning about a specific food, this knowledge serves as a guide for conscious choices in your entire diet. Every decision on your plate directly influences your vitality, disposition, and the prevention of chronic diseases. The good news is that these choices are completely within everyone's reach. All it takes is information, attention, and practice. If you found this content useful and want to continue discovering practical ways to live better, subscribe to the channel now. That way, you will have continuous access to valuable tips on nutrition, prevention, and healthy aging. Remember, taking care of your body after 60 is a matter of intelligence and strategy, and every step counts to live with energy, health, and independence.